Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Vicky from Social Work Sorted, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about the 4 biggest mistakes I see when people are applying for social work jobs. So whether you are a student, a new social worker, maybe even a seasoned social worker who is looking for a change, this video is for you. And number 4 is something that I have done as well. So I want to share it with you just so you don't make the same mistake. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe. There'll be a button somewhere, but it makes such a difference. It helps me know who is out there, what is helpful for you. And if this video is helpful, you want more stuff on interview skills and applying for jobs, let me know in the comments. Okay, so the first mistake that I see people make is talking themselves out of the job before they've even applied. What do I mean by this? I mean that I get students coming to me saying, Vicky, I've seen these 2 jobs in these 2 different areas, and this one would be good for this reason, or this one would be good for that reason. And they start making the pro and con list before they've even done the application. And they say, oh, well, I don't know, because if I got that job, then that might be difficult for me. Or if I got offered that job, it might be difficult. And I'm like, you've not even done the application yet. And it's really normal for us to weigh up those pros and cons, but ultimately, a lot of the time, it just makes us procrastinate instead of actually doing the application. And we've got this massive list of pros, cons, why we want the job, why we don't want that job, before we've even started that application process. You're talking yourself out of a job that you haven't even been offered yet. And if that's resonating with you right now, let me know. The second mistake that I see really follows on for that, and that is when students or new social workers or anyone applying for a job doesn't contact the person detailed on the application. So most job applications, you will read them through, and at the end of it, there will very likely be a sentence that says, if you want to know more about this job, if you want to have an informal chat, this is the person to contact. So contact them. All those questions that you are weighing up about the type of team that you're going to be in or the job that's available, that person will be able to give you that information. So instead of just sitting there going round and round over things in your head, contact that person, ask all the questions that you need to ask. It's helpful for a number of reasons. The first is that it can clarify the job role. So sometimes job roles will go out for social workers and they might say children's services. It might mean that they have a number of vacancies across different teams. What you can clarify when you're on the phone to them is which teams have vacancies. Because if you know that you really don't want to work in a duty and assessment team, and you apply for a job and then you get to the stage of interview, but the jobs and the vacancies are only in the duty and assessment team, you've wasted your time. So this is just a really good idea to try and preempt what's coming and to make the decision about whether you want to apply for that job. Another example of this, and a question that I've asked in interviews, is if you are applying for a job that is close to where you live, how is that going to be managed? So finding out, are there other people in the team in children's services who live in the local area, and how do they manage it? It might feel like quite a simple thing, but that can often be the step between you deciding to apply or not apply. So contact that person and ask those questions. The bonus of doing this is that once you've had that conversation with that person, and if you've really connected and you've been able to share a little bit about your experience, when your application comes in, it's going to trigger something for them. They're going to say, oh yeah, I remember that person. I remember because they rang me up. They were efficient, they were proactive, they were forward thinking enough to give me a call and ask me those questions. And so it will connect the dots for them a little bit. So it stands you in really good stead. And it's also practice for social work, isn't it? Because we can either sit there in a state of panic, of overwhelm, of doubt, and wondering what could go wrong when we're thinking about the application, or when we're thinking about what we're going to do when we're working with a child and family, or we can decide to be proactive about it, make a phone call, investigate, get curious. So all those social work skills are tied up in the interview process as well. The third mistake that I see, and I've done this myself, is not following the job specification when you're completing the application. Application forms can feel very overwhelming. Within my membership, the collective, this month, everyone has been sending me their CVs so I can go through them, support them in any edits that need to be making. So the part of the job application where you need to put your experience, it's usually like a section, you need to put bullet points in. Members of my membership, the collective, can lift that from their CVs and put it in. Then it usually gets down to a point of the personal statement or a section in the application where you need to show how you are qualified to meet the specification of the job. That list, that job specification, which comes with every single job advert, is exactly what you need to go through and make it easy for the person who is screening the applications. So rather than thinking that you're writing this complex essay that needs to be really academic and really in-depth, literally go through the job specification from bullet point to bullet point. What is it asking for, and what's your evidence for meeting that? Because it means when somebody is screening your application, they're going to have that job specification up next to them. So they can literally go through your application, the specification, 2 words that I didn't think I would be saying one after another, and they will tick it off and they'll say, okay, number 1, yes, they've got that. Number 2, yes, they've got that. And that is how they will screen it. So make it as simple as possible for yourself, but also for the person who's going to be reading it. And the 4th and final pointer, the mistake that I made, so this is when I applied for a job, not my ASYE, but after that, between my ASYE and my next job, I took a month off and I went traveling. And when I came to doing my next job application, I didn't put that on my application form. And there were other things that I'd done, small gaps in employment that I hadn't put in my job application. But when people are screening the application, when it goes through, they need to know all the gaps in your employment. Now, I thought those things weren't relevant, and you might be thinking about your job history. There might be jobs that you think it's not necessarily relevant to me being a social worker, so I'm going to leave that out. When HR process an application, when they are processing things like references, they cannot have any gaps. So even if you've had periods of unemployment, or if you've had periods where you have been away, been traveling, whatever it is, put them on the job application. It makes it so much easier. It's not going to be seen as a negative. If anything, it's a little bit like our social work chronologies. If there's a gap in the chronology, we've just got loads of questions. What was happening? Why was it happening? Why is this gap there? If we have details about what was happening, even if it is from this year to this year, there was no social work involvement, it gives us that clarity. It is the same with your job application. So don't be worried about listing periods of unemployment or being out of the country. The main thing is that they are listed. And if they're not, then that will just create another barrier, another question that you have to answer. So I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, let me know. You can like this video. Again, make sure that you subscribe, share it with somebody that you know who is applying for a social work job at the moment. Make sure that you are following me on my other platforms. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I have the podcast. All the details are in the notes below. Good luck with your job applications and see you very soon.